Hey guys, welcome back to another Vanguard video. Today we're covering the future card Buddyfight collabs, and I do really hope we get this in English because I will definitely play it. But we have an interesting mechanic where we actually don't have the Rideline energy generator. So instead we have your ride deck consisting of the flag, the Rideline of 1 to 3, your ride deck, which is your your generator, which is the crest essentially of the deck, instead of the usual energy generator. And then you have the buddy zone, and the buddy zone matters because you get a free call off the crest. So first off, let's go over the flag. Alright, so the flag basically looks like this and is your starter. So out of Vanguard circle, when you stand up, you cost say open the flag. Hopefully in English this will say raise the flag, and you become a buddy fighter. Put a monster for your ride deck essentially straight into the order zone, and it looks something like this. So you'll have your gauge and your order zone be full, basically have everything with your flag and your buddy, kind of like the original effect of the Buddyfight field. And then continuous if you can only put one flag in your deck, so obviously you can't play multiple flags. And then continuous Vanguard circle order zone, unaffected by all their abilities. Interesting, it notes that because there's no order interaction in standard at all, but you know, nice that it's there. And when you would ride or call or play the ability of a card that is only Buddyfight, if the card's Dragon World generic, you can ride or play that ability. So very similar to the original flag effect of Buddyfight. Anyways, moving on to the next card, we have the Gauge Zone Ride Deck Crest. So you actually don't get energy in this deck for what we know from now, because usually your energy generator is part of your ride deck and goes directly in. So basically the 6 ride deck that we see is basically telling us that you don't get energy in this deck. Instead, you're using Gauge like the original game. So auto ride deck, when you ride, costs put a flag from your soul into your order zone, so it sets up your flag immediately. And then put this card into the crest zone and Gauge 2. So it kind of sucks that you lose 2 cards randomly from your deck, and that's put as Gauge. Like if that's OT and a trigger, you probably cry. But you know, interesting that we note that. Also in Buddyfight, the Gauge is basically public. It's not public information, it's actually private information. I don't know how they'll rule that in Vanguard. Likely both players will be able to, or actually the turn player that owns the Gauge will probably be able to see it. But you know, we'll have to wait for rulings for that. But just so you know, in the original Buddyfight, Gauge is actually private zone, and then continuous, you can have Gauge. Auto, when it's put into the crest zone or at the beginning of your ride phase, cost, put a card from your hand face on your Gauge and draw a card. So interesting to note, at the beginning of your turn, you have draw and charge and draw, just like Buddyfight. But it does mean you're going through your deck pretty fast, so I wonder if we'll get more support cards for anti-deck out later. But I mean, unless you're doing this every turn, which you usually are because you do want a lot of Gauge, though there is some effects that reduce Gauge in the Rideline that we've seen already, you'll probably do this every turn. So basically going through filter twice, and that's really nice because maybe you have a bunch of 0 shields in your hand and you want to put those into your Gauge. In Buddyfight, you always want to charge and draw because not charging is basically losing a resource. And then you have the Buddy Call active once per fight. If your Vanguard's greater or greater, choose a Buddy monster for your order zone, call to a Rearguard circle, and countercharge 1. So there's a lot of effects that we'll look at later in the deck, revealed just for Dragon World so far, that already countercharge, especially during your opponent's turn as well, if you have no face-up damage. So essentially if you're out of complete CB. So what this does is essentially plus you 2 if you're counting the countercharge, because you get a free Buddy monster on your board, plus a countercharge, which is really strong and also matters for the impact, which we'll get to later as well. So honestly, solid all around. I think the offense of the deck is looking really good once we get to the Rideline and the support cards. There is also an early game drum as well, which I was really excited to see, the Blue Sky Knights one. But yeah, spoiler alert, the offense is looking really good. We are missing like a lot of reveals from the set, and likely on Tuesday when we get reveals for Disuku as well as the strategy presentation, we'll probably see a lot more of these cards. Alright, so to quickly skim through the Rideline, we have Aibo Academy Gao Mikado. When it's used, placed by riding from Dragon World, perform about the following: look at top 7, reveal to 1 armor dragon or item from among them, put into your hand and shuffle your deck, or search your deck for up to 1 Sunfist Sunshine Impact, armor to this unit without paying the cost and shuffle your deck. So I'm not a judge, but I do have to double check the arm rulings later. I believe you do keep it when you ride up, but I could be wrong. It's just interesting that it has the search and equip effect, because I believe Kairos notes that the, I could be wrong on this, that the translation is arm, but I believe the wording is actually equip. So I'd have to check the kanji with the original kanji that they use for, or moon runes for the Japanese cards for Buddyfight. But essentially what it's saying is that you arm directly to your Vanguard. So I'm assuming you keep it when you ride up. But yeah, really good. You search Sunfist Sunshine Impact, so set up your main combo turn 3, or you check top 7, reveal to 1 armor dragon. And this is relevant because, let me get to Sunfist Sunshine Impact right here. So Sunfist Sunshine Impact is an arm for Vanguard, so it's an order card that arm directly. You pay it with 1 Gauge to equip it. During your turn, your Vanguard gets plus 5k, so if you arm this immediately on turn 1, your Vanguard's already 13k swinging, which is really annoying to guard. And then if you have a Great 3 Rearguard Vanguard with Gao in its card name, all of your front row Rearguards with Drum get plus 5, so buffing your rears. And then auto Vanguard Circle, when this attacks a Great 3 Rearguard Vanguard, or Great 3 Rearguard unit actually, if your buddy monster Rearguard is in link attack state, which the Vanguard sets up, you cost discard a Sunfist Sunshine Impact from your hand until end of battle. You increase your Vanguard's power to infinity and crit plus 1. So immediate reference to the Sunfist Sunshine getting infinite power. And I think this is really, really funny. I know some people will hate this just because it's a collab deck, but it's very interesting because this is one of the few ways you can get around OT in Vanguard, besides, you know, Jejewel suggests, you know, going through the list of very few cards that can basically do something if your opponent hits defensive OT. So, you know, I think this is interesting to see. I think people will definitely play this because it can get around OT. But yeah, essentially your persona blasting the item, so you're definitely playing 4 of this in the main deck. And again, that 5k tier Vanguard early is very strong. Alright, getting back to the ride line here, we have Mikado style Akijitsu Gao Mikado. So auto once placed on Vanguard Circle, you look at the top 7, choose the 1 card with drum or up to 1 item revealed, put into your hand, shuffle your deck. So again, to note for the ride line, it's completely free just for riding up. And again, you're charging and drawing every turn, so you're filtering through deck really fast. So honestly, really solid stuff from just the ride line. So now we have Mighty Sunfighter Mikado Gao, and we have auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. When this unit attacks, you cost rest 1 of your rear guards and the rest unit for this cost, and this unit both become in link attack state. So the combined power, no critical though for what we know for now, so that makes sense. Just like in Vanguard, because otherwise that'd be like way too good. Your opponent would have to guard it. But yeah, basically we know it's adding the power, and there's a lot of drums that have additional effects for link attack, especially if you know what the original cards do. And then auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. At the end of the battle, this unit attacks, you cost counter +1, choose one of your rear guards in the link attack state, stand it, and your opponent's Vanguard's great or greater, you choose one of your rear guards with drum in its card name and stand it. So honestly, looking really, really good. That is 2 attacks, 2 extra attacks you're getting, so usually 5 attacks, and the impact that we'll get to later, the classic Gargantua Punisher, also sets up an extra swing once per game. So basically, 6 attacks is that high roll you're doing with this deck. And because Drum doesn't lose any drives for any of his skills, you actually get the twin drive as well, which we'll get to that for Gargantua Punisher. And then the third skill is My Buddy, Order Nobody, auto Vanguard Circle once per turn, costs soul +1, search your deck or drop for up to 1 Drum Bunk Dragon, call to Vanguard Circle, reduce the cost of the original act by 1 gauge, and until end of turn, and then search your deck, shuffle deck. So honestly, really, really solid effect. Not only do you have your basically gauge or crest gauge, basically setting you up a buddy, this is also tutoring your buddy directly from deck. So you have a lot of deck filtering at basically no cost, besides the Soul Blast one once you get to grade 3 from the rad line. Plus you have your charge and draw every turn. So the deck filtering is looking really, really strong. I think the deck is lacking defense after looking at everything else in the set. But again, we only have 20 cards basically revealed out of the entire set. And we still have Tsuku and a lot of other things that haven't been revealed yet. So honestly, it looks really strong so far just from the initial impressions from the rad line. I do think the numbers are a little bit lacking, besides we don't have giant boosters because so far only drums have been revealed. So we're going to go through those really quick. But those are basically my first impressions of the deck. So it took me a while to get to, but we finally got through the rad line explaining what everything does. So we have Drum Bunker Dragon. So cost, pay 1 gauge and put the top card deck into this card's soul. So basically it's just like the original effect in Buddyfight where you put Soul Guard underneath, where you put Soul underneath the card and it basically stays. And anytime it would leave the rear guard circle, you can put a card from drop and it stays. So that's really interesting because there are effects that stack soul really fast, such as this drum. So this drum is very similar to the Rebi drum, where you can pay 1 gauge, search your deck or drop for up to 1 card with drum. It's different card name from this different card name from this unit, so essentially any of the other drums. Called on top of this card without paying the call cost, which is really good, making these units buddy become basically the soul of that card. And if you search your deck, you shuffle the deck, and then if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, your unit card with drum that has this card as buddy soul, so basically if this is in the soul of a drum, it gets plus 5k power and plus 5k shield, and also active during your opponent's turn. So a lot of the cards that we'll look at later are honestly looking at, basically they're 15k beaters during your opponent's turn, and also get like 20k shield or bigger, depending on the card. And Soul Guard is really nice for any kind of removal, so that would be bind, retire, whatever that would be, or if it would just leave your guard circle by battle as well. So it's really hard to get rid of the rears, and it's really easy for your opponent to get them out through Buddy Call or anything else. So for the next drum, we have Thunder Knight's Drum Bunker Dragon. This is, the Thunder Knight's archetype, which has move and is like very versatile on offense and defense. So call cost, pay 1 gauge, either put the top card deck or a card from your drop into this card's soul. So really interesting to note that a lot of these cards have the additional effect for the call cost to put the card from drop into soul instead. So you can reuse that drum to get that power and shield, and you don't necessarily have to go through deck as fast, because again, you're doing a lot of deck filtering, and you're also drawing for turn and charging and drawing every turn. So really interesting to note there. I think that'll definitely be a very skill-based thing of this deck, to not deck out really fast. And then auto when this move from Rearguard Circle to Guardian Circle until end of battle gets shield +5. Then it gets an additional +5k shield for each of this unit's buddy soul. So essentially this card is going to be 20-25k shield depending on how many drums you have in soul. And then auto Rearguard Circle once per turn. When it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit or becomes in link attack state, it gets +5k until end of turn. So that +5, is once per turn unfortunately, so he's not getting that big, only like 20 with Mikado. But again, it does have Soul Guard and is a really, really big shield. So really nice that it's a big shield that's hard to get rid of because of Soul Guard. So you can Soul Guard other cards that aren't drum and still basically retain that shield. So just from his effect alone, with the +5/+5, he's going to 20k shield. So 15 to 20k shield, really strong, can get bigger if you have more drums to soul. But yeah, really solid card, Thunder Sky Knights. So we just went over Thunder Knights, which is basically the good defense of the deck, because honestly there isn't anything that's giving too much shield or strong blitz. But so far, we have Crimson Ballad Drum Bunker Dragon, which is basically just your crit of the deck. So 1 gauge, either put the top card of your deck or a card from drop into this card's buddy soul, so basically same cost as Thunder Sky Knights that we just went over, or Thunder Knights. And then auto Regard Circle once per turn. When this unit attacks or becomes in the link attack state, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Gal, it gets crit +1 until end of turn. So crit +1 on the swing is really nice. Again, the crit doesn't combine from what we know, but I mean, crit +1 on the rear is always good, and then continuous Soul Guard. So it kind of sucks it doesn't get additional power, but we might see something that buffs it up further or a better booster in the future. Alright, now moving on to Blue Sky Knight's Drum Bunk Dragon, and this is your early game card. So you can pay 1 gauge, either put the top card of deck, or card from your drop into your soul for the call cost. And then auto, if your Vanguard is a Mighty Sunfighter Gal Mikado, this cost is reduced by CB1. So on place, you CB1 draw 1. So once you're on grade 3, it's a free draw 1, and then this is your early game card to on place CB draw 1 as soon as you're on grade 2. And then auto Regard Circle once per turn. When it attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, you either soul charge 1 or put the top card of your deck face down as gauge. So honestly, really good card, and of course has Soul Guard as well, so really good plus all around. Like, wow, you have easy soul. We're gonna get to lots of counter charge later. This is also free on grade 3. Like, the deck has a lot of utility so far. I do think the defense, again, as I've been saying, is a little bit lacking, but yeah, honestly, really good drums. There's still a few more forms to go through. Alright, so the next drum is Ultimate Neo Dragon Drum the Future, probably my favorite one. So call cost 2 gauge, continuous Regard Circle during your turn. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, it gets plus 10k. So again, hitting pretty good numbers because it's 13k. And again, you get that 5 from Gal and the other effects. And then auto Regard Circle once per turn. When this unit becomes in the link attack state, if either you have 4 more cards in your damage zone or you Persona Road this turn, so one or the other, this unit gets auto Regard Circle once per turn. When it attacks, your opponent cannot activate auto abilities until end of battle and cost counter +1 until end of battle. It performs drive checks and drive -1. So it essentially performs a single drive, kind of similar to Vergilla in Alfred, but yeah, really strong card because you're going to link attack with this with the Sunfist Sunshine Impact and get infinite power. I do believe the way that the auto works, I was talking with a friend about this, is that you gain the red text during that battle, so I believe you miss timing, because otherwise that would mean you could link attack with like infinite power and crit +1, and then your opponent can't auto, which would make no sense. So I believe the way it's supposed to work is you link attack with this, restand Van, or sorry, not restand Van, you link attack with Van, and then this guy restands, he'll do 1 drive, and then of course you still have your rear. So still 5 attacks, and you're still getting drive +1, which is really nice. So yeah, essentially you're doing 5 attacks with 3 drives, and this drum also stopping auto abilities means they can't PG it. So if you flip OT and they're lethal damage, they kind of just roll over and die. So the Buddyfight OT also gives crit to both the Vanguard and your buddy. So honestly, really strong card as well if you get the high roll. So really solid card. I mean, doing a drive check on rear is always good. Alright, so the last drum to cover is Fifth Omni Dragon Lord drum, and this is definitely my favorite one because Fifth Omnis are just probably the coolest thing from 100, honestly. So you have call cost, pay 1 gauge, same as usual, put top card deck or a card from drop into this card's Buddy Soul, and then auto Regard Circle once per turn. When it attacks a grade 3 greater Vanguard, CB1, 1 gauge, not CB1. Choose when your opponent's front rear guards retire, it gets power +10 until end of turn. So on attack does go off before intercept and whatnot, but yeah, a little bit awkward there. I kind of wish it was on place. And then auto front rear guard circle, this skill is really interesting. When a card is revealed for your damage check, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Gal in its card name, and you do not have another rear guard with the same name, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and discards it. So essentially a Nubatama effect, which is really interesting. Unfortunately, you can't stack it because again, it doesn't proc if you don't have another one on your board, but honestly, really strong card. And again, that 10k power is really nice for the on attack when you stack it with other things, and is also it is once per turn, so I guess you're not hitting too crazy numbers until we see what the boosters of Dragon World do, and I think that'll be very important to the sex consistency. But like just off the bat, like the numbers look pretty decent, not like crazy BAF numbers like hitting 40 plus until we see the really good boosters, because Gal uses a lot of like Systemic Dagger, Billion Rapier, like all these other cards, Million Rapier, like all these other grade ones from Dragon World that he uses consistently to make the Gal formation, so we should see those as boosters. So Gargantua Punisher, you cannot play this card, and you cannot use this ability if you have not resolved the ability of an impact order this fight. So basically it's once per fight, and then auto from hand at the end of your turn if your opponent's damage zone has 4 more cards and you Persona Road this turn, so it's an and clause, you have to fulfill both. Cost counter +1, discard this card, pay 4 gauge, say final phase, choose your Vanguard, stand it, and attacks your opponent's Vanguard. So pretty crazy, end of turn, extra Vanguard swing. Of course they can still guard this, and your Vanguard doesn't look to be that big as Gal Mikado, but I hope that this is really good with Tsuku's cards if we get Gold Ritter or whatever else, because I'm not sure what else they could put there. I'm really hoping for Gold Ritter, and I'm really excited to see how that'll work defensively in Vanguard, if they'll have to do anything with Link Attack, or if we'll get power during the opponent's turn. But yeah, this card is really good. 4 gauge is not really that hard to achieve when you're charging drawing every turn, but yeah, it's restanding your Vanguard, attacking with it. At worst, this is just Twin Drive, and if you do flip OT or something, they will just simply explode. It's an extra Vanguard swing they have to guard. So yeah, honestly, really strong. With Gal's effect with Sunshine Impact plus Persona Ride, you're essentially hitting 28, which is a really annoying number unless they hit a defensive. So honestly, solid card all around. Alright, so the last two cards to cover before we get to the triggers is Dragon Wisdom Knowledge of the Fifth Omni. This is normal order that can be played from drop. It has no cost as well. You can play it if you have Vanguard with Gao or a card with Fifth Omni on your board. And then bind this card, you gauge and draw, so you can use this turn 1 as soon as you ditch for a ride deck. Honestly, really solid card all around. It's a double rare, so you can use this basically in like any Dragon World deck. So probably in Tsuku as well, maybe if you could play a Fifth Omni as well. But yeah, gauge and draw. So yeah, really cool that you can use it with drum. And honestly, it's really good cycle as well. This is basically like your cycle, your Foul Heart of the deck, essentially, because you ditch it and then charge and draw. The other card I want to cover is Drum Bunker ST. This is actually the only booster that we got. So auto drop when your rear guard with drum and its card name is placed. You cost soul +1, perform one of the following. You either call this or put it into rearguard soul. So honestly, really good. You either get a free AKA booster or you get a free soul for drum, which is honestly really solid all around. So your future card Buddyfight, the OT, and it's not actually an order trigger like the other triggers we'll get to in a second, but it does have the additional effect of choose a normal order from drop. So essentially any of the triggers that we're going to cover in a second, add it to your hand, choose one of your vanguards, it gets crit +1, and then you can choose a buddy monster rearguard circle and also give it crit +1. So double crit is really strong. This is essentially a little bit better Aegis Foro, specifically for the Buddyfight decks. But yeah, honestly, really solid stuff, especially in a multi-attack deck when your opponent had to already guard other lanes. This is really strong. So yeah, I mean, it's over trigger. You can play really any over trigger and it'll work. But yeah, crit +1 to 2 things, especially to your buddy, is really strong. Alright, so now to quickly cover the triggers. So the triggers are actually orders, but they have the effect that when you put them in Guardian Circle, they're counted as trigger units essentially. So you can guard with them multiple times in a turn, but they do have like a normal order effect, which I think is really cool because we haven't had like trigger orders since Shaman King, and really no other collab or like even main set Vanguard deck has really done this. So we have Drago Energy here, which has the order ability of choose one of your armor dragons, get +3k. So if you played as an order, +3k to a booster, could honestly matter for numbers. And then during a Guardian step, it's treated as a 15k trigger. And then we have Dragonic Trust, which is another critical trigger. You can pay it with 1 gauge, choose a grade 2 or less, put a card as Buddy Soul, so more Soul Guard to stop your cards from leaving the board whenever they be killed by battle or removal. You have Dragonic Grimoire, which is the draw order. And this is not an effect trigger, by the way. You play it with counter +1, discard your entire hand if you have basically 4 more damage, and then draw 2. So kind of like a last resort effect, but it's also not an effect triggers. The effect triggers are actually all the generic cards, which we'll get to in a second. And then you have Dragonic Barrier, which is only a 15k shield, but you can put it into your gauge as an order effect. So gauge +1 on command is pretty good. And I think this deck might want fronts just to kind of basically keep more resources going, and also the 10k to your front row really helps for pushing, especially sometimes with crits, your powers might be a little bit too low. I haven't actually tested the deck. Again, we literally just got this revealed today. But I think fronts might be really good. Even effect fronts as well. We'll see. Honestly, the deck is looking pretty Glass Kennedy, as I said before. So really nice to have this. And then the last card is Blue Dragon Shield. And you can play this. It's actually a Sentinel. So we have Halberd, which is a Sentinel, like the overdressed PGs. And then Blue Dragon Shield, on the other hand, is a little bit more interesting because you can play it as a Sentinel. And then you have the option to basically pitch to countercharge 1, which is really interesting. I need to double check this effect. Okay, yeah. You play this cost with basically discard from your hand. You choose one units, you get Sentinel, and then it has the additional effect of if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, you can countercharge 1 and then remove this card from the game. So again, you can't grab it back in any way, for example, through like Aegis 4 or whatever. But yeah, honestly, having your CC for your turn and then also having the Gauge Crest CC available as well for the following turn basically means you're never running out of countercharge. But it is worth to note for Blue Dragon Shield because it does count towards your Sentinel count. You're probably playing like 2, maybe 1 of this. You do want to play a lot because of course it's countercharged during your opponent's turn. But because it's a blitz, you can only play 1 blitz order during your opponent's turn. You can only use basically that Sentinel once per turn compared to like your normal Sentinel PGs. Okay, so last but not least, we have the triggers, and these are basically the effect triggers that we get for every nation that basically every Buddyfight deck can use. So we have Buddy Charge, which is during the Guardian step of that turn. If it's called as a trigger, it gets +50k, so it's the usual, effect front, and then has the auto, when it's retired from Guardian Circle, shove this card to soul. You have the draw, which is essentially 5k shield, it gets additional 5k shield, so your effect draw. You have your effect front, which is, 15k shield, gets extra 5, so 20k shield. And then Ultimate Buddy is a crit, and you can choose what your regards put into soul as the order ability, or it just gets, the 15k shield. So helps sets up soul guards. So if you have a buddy that you want to always keep around, for example, maybe let's say with like Jackknife or something, and you want to stack soul a lot, this card helps you fulfill that condition really easily. So honestly, the crits for Dragon World look really good, but honestly, you might want to play Ultimate Buddy too if you want to keep Drum around. But again, Drum is usually going to evolve into another Drum, so probably not really needed. But yeah, that is pretty much everything for Buddyfight. I think my throat is like that. I was doing another recording yesterday. I do want to get the promo video out. But yeah, this is probably a really long recording. Those are my thoughts on the Buddyfight cards. I think they're really excited. really exciting. And I think this is like honestly something really fresh for Vanguard that we haven't seen in a while. I do really love trigger units. I'm really surprised we haven't gotten more of it. And I really love that it kind of mimics the original Vanguard, for example, with like Drago Energy, but like the original Kakuro crit, like when it's on the board, to give something +3 or like gain additional power. So I think it's really cool that we're finally getting more utility. And I do wish some of these cards would come to honestly main set Vanguard. And I know some people will hate this just because it's a collab, but I do think this is really neat. And again, I really do hope that this comes to English. But yeah, Gal looks really solid. A lot of really good effects. Being able to hit over OT is definitely something very unique to the deck. Just straight up getting infinite power and a crit, I think will make most people think it's pretty broken. But again, you can really only use that ability twice because you only have 4 Sunfish Sunshine impacts. Well, I guess 3 times if you find the last one. But yeah, assuming it doesn't go to gauge or whatnot. So yeah, honestly, not the craziest thing. I do wish we had more item search because besides the Rideline, there isn't really a way to set up the item very well. So you do get that one guaranteed from the grade 1, and then you have to basically find the other ones to get the extra effect for Sunfish Sunshine Impact. But I mean, the deck is still doing multi-attacks. You have a lot of great utility, a lot of like gimmicks. I think Soul Guard is really strong in standard. For example, like in a Bav meta where there's a lot of removal, you're going to be stacking Buddy Soul really easily, so Soul Guard will be very strong. And I think, honestly, it's looking pretty decent. Again, I think you're lacking a little bit of boosters, like I was saying earlier. The defense is a little bit lacking. Honestly, nothing super crazy, especially for the power creep that we have in like Divine Z right now. But honestly, the deck looks pretty decent, well positioned. And again, there's still a lot from the set that we haven't been revealed. So I'm really hoping for Katana World, Hero World, maybe Yami Ghetto. We know we're getting Azida Haka, and Jackknife is on Tuesday. So yeah, my throat is dying now. I will somehow just edit this together and somehow get this out. But yeah, those are basically all my thoughts on Buddyfight. It's honestly looking really solid. Let me know what you think. If you're excited, if you're going to build this deck, I'm definitely going to be building this deck if it comes to English. If not, I'll be proxying or somehow getting the JP cards. I'll figure it out. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.